One of the things when I tour, I have this thing that I do. I'm always looking for women singers. I love duets, and I have Sarah and I actually we have a full record of Grant Peeples, Sarah Mack duets, and of course that one's on there. And so I find, and it's sometimes they're professional, and sometimes it'll go, well, the sound guy, his wife likes to sing. I'll say perfect.
Wow.
And sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's not really good. But even when it's not really good, it's a local person, and it's always, it always kind of works, whether it's good or it's not good.
Welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party, your weekly musical happy hour where musicians pick an album from their back catalog and tell the stories behind their favorite tracks in front of a live online audience.
This week we talk with folk singer and poet Grant Peeples. He joins us from his home in Florida with some green tea to revisit his 2014 album Punishing the Myth, talks about it being a commercial failure, and why it's his favorite album. So pour a beverage, grab a snack, and kick back as we listen to music together here on the Back Catalog Listening Party, where it's always Friday and old albums never sounded better. Happy Friday!
Happy Friday!
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us, I believe, from his home. Yes, Grant? Grant Peeples joining us from Florida. And I don't know if we should ask what the temperatures are where you are, Grant. They're pretty cold here.
It's a balmy 56 here.
Woo,
right now.
Shorts weather. Wow.
Nice.
We here in Minnesota have been experiencing some extreme cold and ice. But today, actually a little bit warmer. I think we reached 22 or something.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. That was balmy.
Balmy. And folks joining the party. Let's see. Christopher, chilling in Savage, Minnesota for today's show. Party time.
Hey, Chris.
I couldn't agree more. Connie joining us from Richfield. Susan from Bend, Oregon, drinking a Northwest IPA from Rogue. And
been on the Rogue River before.
Yeah. And we have Victoria joining us from Hastings, Florida. And checking in from chilly, icy Minneapolis. Warm me up.
We got you, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, this is the show where we invite some of our favorite artists to revisit old records with us. We listen to songs, we chat about the music, and we'd love to hear where you are joining us from. If you're enjoying a beverage or a snack for this weekly happy hour, it looks like Alinda's joining us from New Haven, Connecticut. And Tony, are you enjoying any kind of beverage on this January thaw?
As a matter of fact, I am. I'm keeping warm with a cup of Bengal spice tea.
Ooh, nice.
But last week, after I mentioned this, one of our Patreon members chimed in to say that they put Tabasco sauce in their tea. And so, in honor of Christy, our patron, I thought, well, I didn't have Tabasco sauce, but I had some sriracha. And let's just say I put a little too much sriracha in my Bengal spice tea, but I'm gonna be heating up today.
Gonna keep things zingy.
That's right.
Well, I'm kind of going the other direction. I need to chill out a bit. So I actually made myself a maple old fashioned. I've been on this kind of kick, this wintry kick right here to warm myself up.
Nice.
And Grant, are you enjoying any kind of beverage in warm Florida?
I am drinking a green tea with hibiscus leaves.
Ooh, that sounds real tasty. Really
and
nice.
Cane syrup, which you probably have never probably had cane syrup in your entire.
I have, but it's not something I regularly have here, sadly.
Yeah.
RJ from Tampa chiming in with some homemade chai. Very nice.
Excellent.
So, well, we're happy to have all of you here, and we're so excited to have Grant joining us. I can remember last time I've even seen your face, Grant, in person. It's certainly been way too long. I feel like we were going to play a show together during around the pandemic or something, right?
That's exactly right.
At the Hook and Ladder, we were supposed to play a show, and
March of 2020.
Yeah, that didn't happen, did it? But we're very excited to have you join us today and revisit your 2014 release, Punishing the Myth. But before we dive in, for folks who are maybe a little less familiar with your music, maybe you can give a brief origin story of where you grew up and how you fell into making the music you make.
Yeah, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, and I'm a seventh generation Floridian. I started my music career the weekend of my 50th birthday was the first time I ever sang in front of a microphone.
Wow.
I had been messing around with songs for a long time. and messing around with words, a lot of poetry and things like that. I had lived in Nicaragua from 1995 to 2006, and I came back up here, and it was in 2007 that I played my first show after having made my first record, and I have made 14 since. And
Wow.
and
Been busy, very
yeah,
busy.
well, I came in late to the game, and I feel like, like a kid that gets to the fair late. He just tries to ride every ride he can ride. And I don't think it was, if I had to reflect back, maybe I would have done it a little bit differently.
But then you might not have had the stories and songs that you have. So it's sometimes it's all the stuff we do leading up to the songs that make all the difference. So um this album that you picked to feature, where does this fall into your 14 album discography?
This was the fifth record I had made, and it was I had made 2 records at a studio in here in Florida, and during that process of being working in that studio, I had I had heard a song by Mary Gaucher called "I Drink," and I heard that, and I just fell crazy for it. And then shortly thereafter, Ray Wiley Hubbard came out with a record called Snake Farm. God, I thought it was like the best. And then I started this girl named Betty Sue came out with a record, and I was just getting back and kind of and there was this thread that ran between all of these records, and it was this producer named Gurf Morlix. And
Nice.
so I found him, I guess this is around 2008 or 7 or 8. I found him on MySpace and wrote him, believe it or not. I had the nerve, I have no idea, to just say, "Hey, I'm getting ready to go in the studio and making a record, and I love your drum sounds. Well, how do you do that?" And he wrote back in typical Gurf way, said, "You need a really good drummer." And I was thinking, it's all about tweaking knobs and stuff.
Yeah.
He goes, "No, you need to start with a really good drummer." And so I asked him if I could send him some songs, and he said, "Yeah." And I did, and he wrote me back and said, "These are good." He said, "They're not real good, but they're good." And I said, "Well, can I keep sending?" I kept sending him songs over the next 3 or 4 years. And finally he gave me his email address. And finally he said, "Hey, yeah, I like these. If you ever want to make a record, let me know." And I made my first record with him, which was called Ochre and Ecclesiastes, in 2011. And then we made another one called Prior Convictions around 2012, the next year almost. And then in 2014, the third record that I made with Gurf was this Punishing the Myth.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, Gurf Morlix, we're big fans here. He's been a guest on the show, and also most of the artists that you mentioned also have been guests: Mary Gaucher, Betty Sue, all of those folks. So we encourage you, after you're done listening to this podcast, go to our back catalog of back catalogs, because we've had some great conversations with all those artists. And Gurf is definitely one of those threads that connects a lot of people, and he's been name checked many times on the show. So, we're excited to explore this record. Punishing the Myth came out in 2014. And why did you choose this one?
Well, this record came at a time understand I was, at this point, I guess I was like 57, 58 years old. And I had, because of Gurf and a lot of the connections I'd made there, I had gotten some traction with what I was calling at the time my career. And I had raked up these songs, and I felt really connected to them. I thought I had a really good pile. And Kickstarter had happened, and so I ended up doing a Kickstarter. I raised like $26,000, which was a hell of a lot of money then. And I just decided to go all in on this record. I was all in on everything. I had hired a photographer, hired publicist, and all the stuff. And this was it. This was my launch. This was going to do it, because I had Eliza Gilkinson was on the record, and I had, there was just a lot of it. It was just everything came together to be the record that was going to put me in. And I released it, and no, none of that happened. it was, in a sense, an utter failure as far as commercial. I had the other two records I had made, made it into the Americana charts, and I think one of them was in the top 10. I'd done this one had fell way below all of that, and it was crushing. It wasn't like I walked around, oh, Grant's crushed, but I cared. This is something I was carrying, and it knocked me back for a while. It kind of knocked me off the rails some, and so I kind of walked away from it. I didn't make another record for a few years, and I just kind of, in some ways, I kind of pretended like the record didn't happen, other than I was playing the songs at all of my shows, and I was selling. They were selling as back when records were selling, and I was selling some. But so I picked this record because in 2024, I kind of made peace with it, and I went back and remastered it, and it had been out of print, and I reissued it. And I kind of came to terms with that, and kind of, even in the book in which I kind of tell this story in a kind of an embarrassed way, that I was kind of feeling, I felt sorry for myself, and I felt like a failure and all that kind of stuff. And so I picked this record to do with you guys so I could just kind of air out my dirty laundry on
I love that.
on making a record, and it is my favorite record. It has my favorite songs that I've written on it, and it is the one that I'm most proud of, and will probably remain that. And yet, it was a failure, and that's why
I love hearing that story, Grant. Not that it was a failure, but that, like, I think so many artists or just people going about whatever their work is can feel that way, where it's like that just because something didn't go the way you expected at one point, it wasn't still worth doing, right? And you never know which of those projects will be those ones that you come back to. And that is why this show exists, is we want to celebrate albums like this that you're proud of, that you want to talk about and share with people. So we are so excited. We're so excited. We have a few more folks joining the party. John and Beth from Naples. Judy from South Bend, Indiana, longtime fan of Grant. Of course, Donna joining us from Georgia, and Christy coming from Cambridge, Minnesota. Christy, if you missed it earlier, Tony mentioned that he put some sriracha in his Bengal spice tea.
That's all I had.
Because he didn't have any hot sauce. But
I put a little too much in, but
Yeah, next time he'll have to figure out the dosage correctly. But and Stephen joining us as saying there's no success like failure.
Right.
And I just can't wait to listen to these songs. So first track you picked to feature from this album today is You're a Slave to Your Imagination. Is there anything you want to say about the song before we take a listen?
Yeah, real quick. I wrote this song. I had come back from I'd opened a show for Dan Byrne in Atlanta at Eddie's Attic and made $200, and I was coming home after driving 6 hours up and 6 hours back, and I was feeling okay, and I got pulled over and got a speeding ticket, and then there was a lot of deflation in that. And
like all your money's going to the speeding ticket now.
Yeah, and also just this voice, like, oh man, you're such a loser. Why are you doing this shit? You're too old for it. You're out here wasting gas, and we've all had these voice tapes playing in our head. But I actually took the opportunity. I took that, and then I made it a dialogue. I let her, that anti-muse, I call her, kind of have her piece, and then I answered it. So essentially, this is a song about the music business and my career, and it takes place in a conversation between me and that voice in my head. And it's also, I will say, it's a one chord song, which I thank Ray Wiley Hubbard for telling me that, hey man, one chord songs are cool, dude. And I was I had the lyrics, and I didn't really have a melody, or I hadn't figured that out yet. And it was Ray Wiley Hubbard that suggested that to me.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Well, let's give it a spin. This is Grant Peeples. You're a Slave to Your Imagination here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Chained to the throttle of a runaway train. All your life you looked upon creation, trying to find a window where you could escape. You call it art, but you're just jerking off.
sense of intervention. It's a raunchy business, but I know the score. And I can take it just as good as I can give it. I love to mix up trouble with metaphor. It's true every song, it's just a compromise. But every now and then I find a word will ring true. I hang my hat on a hook, I know I get 'em. I scribble down some crap and then I call it a tune.
Say you're a slave to your imagination, chained to the throttle of a runaway train. All your life you looked upon creation, trying to find a window where you could escape.
Got no idea why I'm wired this way. I'm too damn old to be burning like this. I guess I like the taste of a sticky situation. I never learned to love without making a mess. 20 years I've been working on surrender. Never came to believe God was yanking on the strings. There ain't no cure for hot and cold. I lean into the future when I feel the squeeze.
You're a slave to your imagination, chained to the throttle of a runaway train. All your life you looked upon creation, trying to find a window where you could escape.
And everybody wants to water their own little flower and tilt the altar where they worship their sins. I fly my flag above a prison house of language. The only way I sail is when I'm close to the wind. Psychology, mythology, crooked ways of looking through a smoky glass. In abstract theory, it's a futile search for meaning. You never know the truth until it kicks your
Ask me and I'll tell you that you're a slave to your imagination, chained to the throttle of a runaway train. All your life you looked upon creation, trying to find a window where you could escape. You're a slave to your imagination, you're chained to the throttle of a runaway train. All your life you looked upon creation, trying to find a window where you could escape.
When will I learn that I'll never escape?
All right.
Yeah.
Grant Peeples, You're a Slave to Your Imagination from his 2014 album, Punishing the Myth. And oh, man.
That was great.
Yeah, I think I second all of these comments in here, especially Chris saying cool lead horn, tasty, and then Christy just going whoop with 2 exclamation points. So sweet. And I know, Grant, you were like, oh, we don't have to listen to the whole thing because it has a long ending. And I was like, no, I don't want this thing to end.
Okay,
This is
good.
groovy.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, like I spent all that money on all those, all that, and you would have probably counseled me on this. We did all of this, and then I had like several radio people said, "Your first song has somebody else singing first before you, and it's got a really long outro. You don't have your first song. That's a bad first song."
Oh my goodness.
God, come on.
Well, it would have hooked me, but I'm
Okay.
probably not your average
Right.
DJ. And I'm not bound by short songs either.
Okay.
So
Okay.
No.
and here at the back catalog, anything
Okay.
goes. I really dug that. Well, first of all, we got a who was the voice singing with you?
Okay, that is Sarah Mack, who is a Tallahassee singer. We recorded that. We did all the rhythm tracks. That's Rick Richards playing on drums, who is Gurf's go-to drummer. He
I
played
was
on
gonna
all the Ray
say you
Bobbitt.
found a good drummer. That was
Yeah.
good.
Right, yeah. And Gurf played bass and the guitars, and I think he even played. He played pretty much all the other instruments. But he came to Tallahassee with the session, and we added Sarah Mack and that horn, because Sarah Mack's from here, and the horn player is a guy named Longino Parsons, who teaches horn at FAMU here, Florida A&M University here, and that is an old Cannonball Adderley cornet that he plays.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what's being played on there. But that is Sarah Mack, who retired about 3 years after this. She had a great career going, and she decided she wanted to have babies, so she is retired now.
Well, her voice is so
Yeah.
good.
And I love that she started the song. I mean, it doesn't follow any conventions, and then you realize that once the story gets going, why that's important too.
Right.
That she does. And just while we're on that cornet, I gotta ask, like, is that something that you had envisioned for this song? Had you thought, I really want some horns on this, or was that something that came with the production or Gurf or somebody else?
It was an idea, and with Gurf, I'm one of those guys that, man, when I get a producer, I kind of, I just, but I knew Longino, and I knew he was a great player, and I had the idea, and Gurf said, "Hey, we'll when I come to Tallahassee, we'll go in there and see how it is," and Gurf really liked him, and so from the beginning, I kind of. Yeah, it had that I was kind of envisioning that sound.
Well, it's funny that with the horns and also just the way it's a conversation between
Right.
these two characters, it really had a very sort of theatrical feel to me. And earlier you were talking about how you had, dabbled in various kinds of writing before you had really latched onto songwriting professionally. Was theater part of that, or because it had such a I could picture like these two people on stage, like it seemed like a theater piece,
No, it was not. But when I wrote that song, I wrote it because Sarah Mack and I have been playing together. She and I wrote it. It was her voice I heard in my head, and she is a theatrical person, and I knew. And I had it, and I think as I was constructing the song, as Leonard Cohen would say, I never heard Leonard never say about writing. It was always, as I was constructing the song, I really heard her voice, and I saw her standing beside me on stage, and she's very animated, and I could just see all of that,
Oh,
and there's a really good YouTube of that people can check out. It's of Sarah and I doing it. It's a YouTube that I'm proud of that we shot.
We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. So if you're listening to the podcast, if you go to backcatalog.listeningparty.com and go to this episode with Grant Peeples, we'll have a link to that video and links to Gurf and Grant as well. So that brings up an interesting question, because you heard her singing it when you constructed the song. And I'm presumably you probably played some local shows where she sang it with you. But is this a song that you ever play live when you're just touring solo, or is this
I play it a lot, and one of the things when I tour, I have this thing that I do. I'm always looking for women singers, and that's that was our gig. I don't know if you remember it. I said, "Hey, will you do the show me? But you have to sing a couple of my songs." And
I was sure, yeah.
I love duets, and I have Sarah and I actually we have a full record of Grant Peeples, Sarah Mack duets, and of course that one's on there. And so I find, and it's sometimes they're professional, and sometimes it'll go, well, the sound guy, his wife likes to sing, and I'll say perfect. you know.
Wow.
And sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's not really good. But even when it's not really good, it's a local person, and it's always, it always kind of works, whether it's good or it's not good.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Having somebody do that with me.
I love that. And by the way, folks chiming in the chat, and feel free to keep the comments and questions coming as we go throughout the show today, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Stephen had chimed in earlier saying, everybody's a producer. F them, do it like you feel it. And I agree. Like if it means starting with someone else's voice or doing a long song, I say go for it. And here on the Back Catalog Listening Party, we just like to celebrate art in whatever way the artist conceives of it. So this is really, really great. So folks, feel free to throw stuff in the comments. We're going to continue with more music. Also, someone chimed in to say that they heard you do it at 30A Songwriters Fest recently. So
Yes, I did. Yeah.
which one of these days, Tony, we're going to take a trek to Florida for
Nice.
the 30A Songwriter Festival, because it's pretty epic. How many?
You
I don't know
who,
how many
you know who
performers
sang
are
it
there.
with
But
me at 38? That was this weekend. Do you know who sang? Do you know who Flamey Grant is?
I love. She's been a guest on our show, actually. We
Flamey
love
did that
her.
song with me, and she smoked it.
I
Man, it
bet.
was like, yeah.
Oh, she's
Fantastic.
amazing. Another one of our favorites. So, yeah, 30A is just like a big. It takes place at all these different places. And they have like big acts like Mavis Staples and Emmylou, and then they have
People like me.
songwriters. Yeah, they have all songwriters, and it's great. So one of these days I'll make it out there.
Hey there, would you like to be part of the live show? Well, become a member of the Back Catalog Listening Party Patreon, and you'll get a backstage pass to weekly online tapings where you can ask the artist questions and participate in the live chat with a fun community of like-minded music nerds. You'll also get a first look at upcoming guests and receive invitations to special live streams and private after parties. So join the party today at patreon.com/Back Catalog Listening Party.
But right now we have you here, and we're excited to revisit more songs from this record. And the next one you picked is The Hanging. Is there anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, this is my this song is probably a song I've done more than any other song. I wrote it fairly early on. It was on my second record, which was called Pawn Shop, which was produced here in Florida at Gatorbone Studio with a woman named Kelly Goddard singing. And I loved the song, and I loved the job she did, but I didn't love the job I did on it. And I was playing the song out a lot. It was being requested. And I ran it by Gerf. I said, can we redo this? And he said, sure. And he said, who would you like to get sing with? I said, well, you know Eliza Gilkinson, don't you? And so Gerf called Eliza, and she came in and sang it with me. It's called The Hanging. It's an allegory. I live in Florida's number 2 behind the state of Texas in state executions. Since I was a little kid, I kind of grew up in a kind of a redneck conservative milieu, but I have always had this kind of visceral issue with capital punishment, not necessarily somebody being killed, but the idea that the state decides who they can kill is something that really, just from 3rd grade, this song is a reflection of that in just a story.
All right, we're going to give it a spin now. This is Grant Peeples, The Hanging, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I heard about the hanging this morning, and I rode on into town. And there were gallows nailed up on the square, and a big crowd had gathered all around, selling postcards and cotton candy and crucifixes and American flags. I seen a woman, she wept at the gallows steps. She held a little bird in her hand, and she said,
I'm not crying for him. No, I don't even know his name. For what he done was a sin against God, to be reckoned come Judgment Day. I'm crying for what we've become, still burning our flesh to dust.
Well, the prisoner climbed the gallows steps. You could see excitement in the crowd as that noose got lowered down over his head, and his face was covered with a shroud. And then that woman held her little bird to her breast as the order rang loud and clear. And I heard a crack as they snapped his neck, and the crowd, it let out a cheer. And she said,
I'm not crying for him. No, I don't even know his name. What he done was a sin against God, to be reckoned come judgment day. I'm crying for what we've become, still burning our flesh to dust. I'm not crying over him, I'm crying about us.
well, they cut him down and they hauled him off. And the people, they all gone home. And the wind blew trash through the empty streets as that woman, she stood all alone. And then she knelt down on the gallows steps and she bowed her head to pray. And then she raised her hands above her head and let that little bird fly away. And she said, I'm not crying for him. I don't even know his name. What he done, it was a sin against God, to be reckoned come judgment day. I'm crying for what we've become, burning our flesh to dust. I'm not crying over him, I'm crying about us. I'm not crying over him,
I'm crying about us.
Grant Peeples here on the back catalog listening party with The Hanging, featuring Eliza Gilkison, and folks really chiming in how much they love the song. Powerful song, and we should listen to this every day.
Mm.
You know, a lot of folks, you know, saying, one person was like mentioning they heard you do it with Jamie Harris. Someone mentioned Flamey was amazing. And I would imagine anytime you perform this with different voices, it's just going to have a different character. And that probably makes it fun and fresh every time.
Yeah, and this is song even more so than Slave is a song that I've had surely over 200 different women sing this with me over the last 20 years, I guess. And yeah, and it's different every time, and it's never bad because they all have a different take on it.
Yeah.
It's, for me, I will point, you know, for me, the reflection of the song is the important part about the song is, you know, I'm not crying over him, I'm crying about us. It's really about our culture and our society. I'm reading now, I just started reading 1984 again, and I'm just today, it's when Winston, he writes, it's April 4th, 1984. And the first thing that he writes in his journal is a description of a movie that he saw that was broadcast to the people, in which immigrants had been in a boat and had been shot at and killed with a helicopter.
Mm.
And how the people in the crowd cheered when that happened. So it's one thing that the government was doing it, but the real part of the story for me was the cheering of the crowd, and that's all. That's the part
Mhm.
Wow.
the song's about.
Yeah. Well, folks really enjoying the music. And
Thank all these people for being on. I mean,
I know someone
I
just
just
chimed
figured
in to say you three are bringing a great Wednesday evening of music and conversation.
Uh,
Thank you. And whenever you are listening, I hope you're enjoying the music. And for those of you joining us for the live taping here on YouTube, feel free to throw in your questions, your comments as we go, because it's all about this. It's the conversation. It's the spending time together. It's appreciating these songs together. And going to see live shows, of course, is magical in its own special way because there's unique performances you won't hear again. But what's special about this hour is we get to revisit the songs in their original incarnation, or at least in one recorded form. And it's really special to hear these insights and stories behind the songs. And I also want to give a shout out to Ryan, who said, doggone it, late to the party, but you know what? You're not late because you're here and we're so happy you're here. So if you just joined us, welcome. Tell us where you're tuned in from, if you're enjoying a beverage or a snack for our weekly happy hour. And of course, share your thoughts and comments as we go today. And Ryan chimed in with a question. What do you mean by punishing the myth?
Punishing the Myth, in 2012 or 13, somebody gave me a book of poems by John Ashbery, who was a really great poet that I hadn't heard of. And there was a poem in there called Punishing the Myth. And and I read the poem, and it was one of those poems that got at me. And this happened right about the same time that I was really getting into Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I had also just made a record called Prior Convictions. So I was then, as I am now, one of the themes that I deal with a whole lot is this idea of belief and what belief means. And Pema Chodron, at that time, I started reading her in 2011, and she talked about what belief meant. And that as soon as you say you believe something, what that means, as soon as you say, I believe, what happens is a wall goes up around you to where you can protect that belief from anything that goes against it. And only science doesn't do this. Science says, I think this is true. Come at it. I want you to come at it and prove it wrong. But us humans are a little different. So a lot of the things in here, even the hanging, of course, and Slave both are songs about, thinking, setting oneself up for things. And so that's how that came up. And then as I raked all these songs up, what I didn't even realize, and it wasn't by intention, is every song in this record has the word myth or mythic or mythological in it. And so that's what I was doing. And that is still a theme I work with every day. I have a tattoo in reverse on my chest. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I see it every morning when I'm in the mirror brushing my teeth. I can't say I always pay attention.
It's like a mantra. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I want to thank, man, there are a lot of people here I need to thank. And Brian is one. I have a lot of my patrons on here. Judy from in Indiana has hosted me in three different states and 4 different locations.
Nice.
These are my people who are on here. Victoria's on here, and I can't get them all, but I really want to thank everybody for being on here.
Yes, the more the merrier. And what makes this hour special is this a way of us gathering together, even if we can't be together in person. And so keep the questions and comments coming. We do want to let folks know that if you are newer to Grant's music, or maybe you just don't have this album, you can buy it. And when I say you can buy it, I don't just mean you can buy a little disc in a cardboard thing, which is great in its own right, because the music is what matters. But Grant held it up a little bit earlier and teased it. But why don't you show the folks, do a little show and tell of what people can get when they get this album from you?
Yeah, the last few records I've been making, I've been doing in a concept where I call it a book that comes with a CD. And it's like a chap book. This one's 36 pages, and it has all pictures of when we were recording the record. It's got all of that in there. It's got all the lyrics, and every song. Before I give the lyrics, I tell the story behind it, and I also tell the story of that story I told you, the little my tearful intro to our thing here today about how the record got made and the disappointment. But the CD is in it, but there's also a QR code in here. So if you get this, you can do like Anthony and I were talking in pre-production about how he and his brother used to sit around and they didn't say what they were doing before they did it, but they had their heads up. They were reading, would put on a record and sit there and read the liner notes and talk about this drummer and that. And so I wanted this to be able to have that experience too. And all of my records do that. And that's how this comes. And you can get it at Bandcamp. That's the easiest way to get it.
Yes, and we're scrolling that on the screen. grantpeoples.bandcamp.com is the place you can go to pick up this album or any of his other albums in these book formats. But also, you can also get the digital tracks there, the high-res tracks, which we always recommend because whether you're listening on CD or the high-res WAV files, make sure you're really getting the full juice. Because as much as you love the music, enjoying it on the podcast here, or on YouTube, I guarantee it will sound 1,000 times better when you get the real thing because Gerf did a great job.
Yeah,
by
it's
the way,
Gerf Morlich's production, folks.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to high res files in a while, I'm just going to say, give it a try. Go put a CD in, dust off your CD player and put on some headphones or download the FLAC or the WAV files of Grant's record, and you'll hear things that you probably forgot about. There are nuances to music that I think a lot of us have lost through the streaming services, and you can reclaim them. And also let Grant know how much you appreciate his music by purchasing the real thing.
That's right. And also a lot of folks also just saying how much they love this album and the music. And someone was asking, and this is an important question because I don't know where this person's tuning in from, but they're asking when you're coming north again. And as people who are Tony and I are based in Minnesota, we also want to know the answer to this question.
Yes.
I don't know if you're coming to our part of north, but we would love to see you back here. So any plans?
I don't have. I played in Minnesota in July in Minneapolis, and
good time to come up here too.
Yeah, it was really nice. But right now I don't have anything to books come there. I'm going to be playing at the Woody Guthrie Festival this year in Oklahoma, which when you're in Florida, Oklahoma and Minnesota sound pretty close to each other. They're not. And I will be in Michigan and I'll be in Indiana playing a show with my friend Judy. I'm playing in Illinois at the in June at the Moccasin Creek Festival. And I'll start building some stuff around those dates, but I'm not sure I'm going to shoot up that far this year. Unless somebody there in Minneapolis would like to.
Well, there's some Minnesota folks joining us tonight who are pretty stoked. So we'll see what we can get going. But you go to grantpeoples.com and you can find all those tour dates. You can sign up, I'm guessing, for an email list and all that good stuff. So we highly recommend that. But we need to get back into the music because we got a lot of tracks to listen to. And this next track you picked to feature is The Morning After the Coup. Is there anything you want to say about this one?
No, I really don't want. I will say that I wrote this song back then, but on January 7th of 2021, I played this song on Facebook, and I played it at the inauguration. I played it the day of the inauguration in 2016, and I also played it on January 20th of this year. And so that's all I'll say about this song.
This is Grant Peeples, The Morning After the Coup, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
It was the morning after the coup, and she drank coffee on the sidewalk, and you could see in her face she hadn't slept for days. She smoked one right after the other, as if to soothe the revolution. Now that all the chains were broken, on earth as it were in heaven, and she reflected on the struggle, and the sacrifice of angels, and the blood left on the pages, drafted by the hooded lawyers. That's when she felt the pang of hunger for a world she could not order. And though empowered by the moment, she had no idea what to do. It was the morning after the coup. in her whisper, as she'd be foolish to surrender. Yeah, she was armed but sentimental, so there were questions that remained, to which the goddess sent her answer, with a voice so calm and gentle that there was little left to lose now, and really nothing more to gain. And though the barricades had lifted and the streets were cleared of rubble, the captured flag was missing, and things, they were far from normal. The sanctuaries of tradition were occupied by new convictions. She was in a hostage situation, forced to change her point of view. On the morning after the coup, there's a grave, a mythic song, shooting through her like a spear. She lifts her hands and holds them to her heart, and she feels it deep beneath her armor. It's like the flutter of a bird, a little engine of regret that stops and starts. She lays a tip down on the table, walks across the street and buys a paper, but the headlines, they're still empty. It's just the same old propaganda. And then somewhere off in the distance, she hears a siren go to wailing, and then her tears, they just start falling, 'cause there is nothing left to prove. It's the morning after the coup.
All right. Grant Peeples, The Morning After the Coup, from his 2014 album Punishing the Myth, which we are revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, with Grant Peeples joining us from his home in Florida, and so many of you joining from all over the country. And it's so great to have you here. I know Patty said, damn the hour time difference. But you know what? You made it, and we're happy you're here.
Yeah.
And also, of course, if you joined us late for the live taping, it doesn't matter, because this will all be airing its full glory later as part of the podcast. And we're just happy you all are here. And Ryan said, you made it early then, Pat. And then Susan says, great lyrics makes for great music, which I agree with that. Sounds great. So who was singing on that?
Two things I want to touch on. First, Ryan had asked, and Ryan is a supporter of mine, wanted to know, does it always start with a poem? It always, every song I do starts with words, and I write a lot of poetry, and I publish poetry on my social media very frequently, and I never really get confused about, is this a song or a poem? I always kind of know. Every now and then one works out, but everything I do starts with words, and I've learned not to pick up a guitar until I've got a good draft of a song, and I kind of have the structure in mind. I'll have in my head, melody maybe, and I beat some stuff on a windshield. On a steering wheel, and I might have, gone down the road and sang some stuff, but I don't pick up the guitar because that kills the process. And then I also just want to give out a shout to Howard in Kansas City, whose series in Kansas City I've been trying to get into for a number of years there, Howard. So I will be up in your area this summer. If you want to squeeze me in, I'd love to play it.
Nice.
Excellent. Well,
so
I love it that we're connecting, not just music fans, but also if we can help gigs happen too,
That's
we'll
right.
take it. Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me for doing that on your show.
No, it's all good.
That is the woman singing on there is Liz Williamson, who produced my first two records.
Oh, nice.
and she and I went to high school together. And she is kind of like my sister, and there are very few songs. I would say every record, and I think I've done 4 or 5 records there at her studio, which is called Gatorbone Studio. But every record I have made, every song I have ever put on a record, Liz has heard it before I went into the studio with it. So because she and her husband Lon are my 2 sounding boards. Them and Donna Mavity, who is my manager, are the people who always kind of hear my stuff before I go to studio. But that was Liz singing the backup.
Nice. And it's so important to have those folks in your life. Those
Yeah.
sometimes it's bandmates, sometimes it's family members, sometimes it's close friends. Having those people that you can, bounce those songs off of is really, really important. The Back Catalog Listening Party is brought to you by EFS Publicity. Founded by veteran publicist, promoter, DJ, and musician Ellen Stanley, EFS brings an artist's perspective to the table, working to help clients get to the next level in their career. Services include national and international media campaigns, radio promotions, tour press, crowdfunding, grant writing, and more. Get a quote or set up a consultation today at efspublicity.com. I do want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is you mentioned that you put a lot of not just time and energy and soul into making this record, but you also invested a lot in it. And you talked about doing a big Kickstarter for the project. And you were nice enough to share a photo with us.
Yeah.
And I think this is a result of the Kickstarter. Am I right? Those decorations. Yes. So tell us a little bit about this van that we're looking at.
I raised like $26,000 is the number I'll share. And the people, these names on here are the people who funded it. And oh boy, I'm seeing, and these are a lot of these people are still with me, Bob Bronar still plays. He's on there, and Pearson Hill and Bob Wade, and Maggie Counts. All of these people are people who, and some of them, Walter Banning is no longer with us. I see 2, and Colleen, who is a former wife of mine. There are people on that bus who are no longer with us. Mm-hmm. But these are the people who ponied up and made the record happen. And they're the ones who helped me spend all that money on a record that didn't launch like I thought it was going to launch.
And did you handwrite all this on there yourself?
I did some of them. There's a woman artist here in Tallahassee by the name of Linda Hall, her art is all over my house. I could give you a tour. She did the art kind of stuff, but I actually put the names up there. Yeah, I did.
I love this. And for those who are just listening to the podcast, we are looking at this van that is full of the names of people that supported this album we're listening to today. There's also some great artwork. I see a fish and the Punishing the Myth written on the side and all kinds of really, really interesting little graphics. We'll make sure to post this to the show notes at backcataloglisteningparty.com.
That's right. And also now I have to know, is this van, do you still have this van?
Yeah, that van blew up and like all of these kind of stories. And it's probably, actually though, I had somebody, the engine blew up on me. Oh. And it was just going to cost too much. And I kind of I walked away from it. But I was getting a divorce and it was all that going. But I had somebody come up and tell me that they got that van. And he said, I like to never got all that right. I wish I'd remember the guy's name, but he said, no, I put a new engine in, I did all the work. And so it's out there. It's just not.
I love that somewhere someone's driving a van where they couldn't get all those names off. So
1984.
I kind of love that. Wow. Well, that's an awesome thing. And if you want to find other ways to support Grant Peeples' music, again, you can buy the music, buy the books, buy all this very cool merch at Bandcamp. You can also, go to shows, grantpeeples.com. But at Bandcamp, when you're there, the cool thing is not only can you buy all this cool merch and music, but you can also name your price. So you can give more than what he's asking, because I'm sure he's undervaluing what he has up there. So you can throw in a little extra there. But it's important to support, independent artists so they can keep, not just fueling up the van, but, and having a working van, but also, just to fund the music. So, we want to encourage folks to do that.
And I do want to say the most important things. I'm working on a little piece right now. The 7 best ways to support Grant Peeples. And after going through all this social media shit and like doing all this, Donna and I have really decided that the most important thing I have right now is an email list.
Mm-hmm.
It is my most direct access to people. And I can put on there, you send out stuff in your poetry. I send out my poems. I send out new songs. I do all of that. But every now and then I send, and your open rate is whatever it is, 32%. But every now and then I'll put a subject line, I need you to open this. And dude, it goes to 75%. And so I know when I really need to get to people, I can say that they'll open it. So getting on my email list is huge, and following me on social media and paying attention to what I'm putting up on. I'm not a big Instagram guy. It's mostly on my artist page on Facebook and my personal page. You can see work happening in real time there every day.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to do a little shout out for the email list too, because a lot of folks knew about this taping because of that email list. Right. So that's a great thing to do. And also you can get the latest news. And I know you have a new record. So is there anything you want to say about this new release, your 14th?
Yeah, it's just come out. What is the name of it?
Code to Live By.
Code to Live By. Yes.
See, because I get your emails. I know.
It was produced here in Tallahassee. I recorded it here in Tallahassee, and it's a pretty serious record. And it was a record that was built in the echo chamber that we're all living in right now. And the songs on there address these things. I don't think there's a single love song on it.
Well, it can be a hard time for love songs right now. Yeah. It's important to write what you're feeling, right?
Yeah. It is. And voices like Grant's are what keep us going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that we keep lifting those voices up. And so I just want to give a shout out to the people that lift the voices up on this show. We started this during what I thought was going to be the worst time back in 2020 when everything shut down. It's a little PTSD here in Minneapolis where we're coming from. But I tell you what, this show, every week when we connect with artists, when we connect with each other, and when all of you are out there and we remember what's good and what's worth fighting for, it's because of a select group of people that decided they wanted the show to keep going after the world opened up, after the pandemic. That's our Patreon supporters. And I just want to make sure that we give them a shout out because they make this happen. We couldn't afford to kind of keep the lights on here without their support. So a quick shout out to the diehards here: Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Becky, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Matt, Steve, Mark, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Nikki, Joni, David, CJ, Christy, Diane, Hetty, Sandy, Neighbor Ann, BZ, Paul, Cynthia, Ross, Mike, Eric, Stephanie, and our newest member, just as a few days ago, Phil. Thank you all so much for continuing to show up and letting independent artists know how much their music matters, and we appreciate you.
That reminds me of a Lou Reed song, calling out the names. I can't remember, but it was the song that I kind of borrowed from to write my song "Code to Live By." Reading out all of those. Now, I'd like to add one thing before we went on air tonight. It was the elephant in the room was you two guys were in Minneapolis, and I asked you. I said, we're out here. What do you want us to do? Like, what do you want people in Florida to do? What you guys are up there, and y'all are like getting the shit beat out of you, and you're not throwing rocks back. You're like you're the personification of what Martin Luther King would have wanted you to do. You're doing it exactly the way he said do it. And I asked, what do you want us to do? And you gave me an answer, but I would like for you to just say, if you would put it in your own words, what should we be doing?
Well, I would say if folks are want to know how they can help with the ICE situation, is they can just call their representatives. And the easiest way to do that is by going to 5calls.org. And there's a whole section just on ICE or on any issue that you might be concerned about right now. But really letting people know that that we don't want to fund having a secret police come in without following laws and really harassing everyone who lives here, citizens and non-citizens alike. We feel like we're in an occupation, not an operation. And so even the language that's being used really minimizes the trauma that is pretty widespread. And it's not just in the cities, it's in the suburbs, it's in small towns, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and we know how this goes. It starts one place and it spreads.
Right.
And so if it doesn't feel relevant right now, it might someday. So like Ellen said, just call your representatives. Our representatives have been calling.
No, they
We've been
know.
calling them. They know. But I don't know if the rest of the country does. And I can just speak. I have friends who are afraid to go to work. I have a family member that is afraid to leave the house with their children because they don't look like a Caucasian white person.
Yeah.
And that is just absolutely everything.
The mom of a classmate of my son's neighbor, the mom can't do the grocery runs anymore. It's just the dad who's white.
Yeah.
So this is real and it's affecting everyone. Again, it just doesn't feel safe. So
I just learned about fivecalls.org today. And so that is a thing that apparently it makes, I haven't downloaded the app, but apparently it makes
you just
it
go to the
really
website too. So
yeah,
yeah,
it makes it really easy to do. And so
yeah.
I will
Well,
do
thank
that.
you for asking about that, Grant. And thank you all for being here in community, because this really is what feeds us and fuels us to face what's going on right now is having this community of people and people who care about the world and art. And it's very encouraging for us to have that. And before we go, I mean, we do have, we were going to get to one more song if you're willing to hang out. Grant.
I'm willing to hang out, but I don't know if the podcast gods will.
I think we're the podcast gods.
Okay.
Yeah, we can decide if you're up for it. We would love to. There's a lot of people still hanging out with us here. I think that would love to hear one more song.
Let's do one. I would say, let's. Do you want to? Can we skip the song? Would it be hard to skip and to move ahead?
No, you pick the song, Grant.
It's not a song; it's a poem, and
Oh.
it's called High Octane Generation, and it is that's all I'm going to say. It's a poem, and it sounds like it's about cars, but it's not about cars. It's about us.
Excellent.
I think it's the perfect way to close out our hour here with Grant Peeples, High Octane Generation, on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
So long to the high octane generation and all its faulty heirs, who at long last, having learned to live without beauty or any of her manifestations, can just sit here on this bank of sand and watch the river flow, black and backwards. Praise now the plastic tunes and tooth whiteners, the square boxes, the straight liners, the lighted paths and hand sanitizers, the beige spectrums of knowledge, that bumbling self-righteous light we have spit into the very eye of the atom. Yes, we, the high-octane generation, have been weakened by a pathological need for power steering, air conditioning, fuel injection, solid-state ignition, and push-button roadside assistance from a revisionist dashboard savior with blood in his feline eye. But time was, man, we had our valves ground down. We had our hearts bored out. We had points and coils and rotors. We had bumpers. And brother, we had chrome. Back then, we could bleed our brakes, advance a spark, torque our heads. And there was no goddamn check engine light because we checked our engines every day. We sat with them while they idled, listened to their intonations, and laid our hands upon the valve covers as we breathed the secrets of our hearts into their manifolds. Yeah. We were masters at backseat acrobatics. Because all that was just humping it up inside a poem that we knew by heart.
You see, these machines, they were extensions of our understandings of all things, both material and spiritual. And to such an extent that speed and horsepower were not just quantitative realities. No, they were allegories that fueled our passions, drove our ideals, and mapped out our interior destinations across the crooked fields of time. I have no idea what has happened to this high-octane generation, why it can no longer burn rubber, why it resists lifting the hood to see the power, or how it has arrived at such a place that owning a car that can park itself would appear to be nothing to be ashamed of. Or then maybe I do, but that would be another poem.
Grant Peeples, High Octane Generation. What a great way to end
Thank you so much.
our hour. Folks loving all the poetry and music you've shared with us tonight and the community. Hope Connie also saying just what we needed today. And I agree. And this hour always does it, Tony. Every week.
It does.
No matter what the world throws at us.
I know.
I feel like we're always better after enjoying music with our favorite artists and with all of you who are joining us and tuned into the podcast. We're so grateful for all of you.
Well, I'll be able to go back over and after you turn this thing off and look at the people who've commented. And
yes,
okay.
Yeah,
you'll be able to do that. And then, of course, for all of you, whether you're join us for the live conversation on YouTube or whether you are listening to the podcast version of the show. If you enjoyed this conversation, which we know you are, make sure to give it the thumbs up, give it a review, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to whatever platform that you're enjoying this on, because we do this every week, believe it or not. Not with Grant Peeples, sadly, every week, but with other great artists. And we've mentioned a few of them today. So please subscribe, and then you can be notified what's happening next here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
And thanks again for showing up tonight. Grant, thank you for spending this hour with us. You really were what we needed tonight here in Minneapolis, and all of you all here. One of the things I saw at a recent march was a cardboard sign that said, "Courage is contagious." And for whatever reason, I needed to see that at the time that I saw it, and I believe it. And Grant, thank you for sharing your courage. It is contagious.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. And we'll see you back next week for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on the Back Catalog Listening Party. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, which helps more people discover our show and our guests.
And do you want to be a part of the live show, get a first look at upcoming guests, and receive invites to private online parties and live streams? Then join our Patreon community at backcataloglisteningparty.com.
Have a great week. We'll see you back here next Friday for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.